I love to grow all these vegetables, but sometimes it's hard to find things to do with them. So I'm going to try a recipe out today and bring you along with me. Got some sweet potatoes baking up, getting ready to do my aromatics. And we're going to work today on a shepherd's pie that has really pretty much vegetarian. There's no meat in it. There is some butter and a little bit of oil, but that's pretty much it. Start out with my celery, get it all chopped up, and my carrots. Normally I would also do onion, but my daughter doesn't like that. I'm going to put that in the pan to get started softening up and get that flavor base going. Just want it on a nice low heat. And in the meantime, I've got everything kind of set up so that I can start getting the squash ready. And this is a monster squash. It's huge. Still has a little bit of the green around the edges. So I think I might have picked it just a little bit younger than some of the others, but it stored great over the winter. I kept this one in the garage. Look at all that juice. That's just crazy. But I kept this one in the garage where it stayed kind of cool. And it did well. I'll probably end up doing that again. I did have a hard time trying to figure out the best way to peel these, so I just pulled out the old potato peeler, and it's time consuming, but it did work. And then just chop it up, dice it into pieces so that I can add it to the pan. I did not use all of this squash. This is a lot of squash. I'll be making quite a few dishes out of this. So I've got my carrots and my celery softened up. Just going to add in some of that squash. Just going to let it start cooking down a little bit. I like to add some garlic for flavor, but I didn't want to put it in too early so that it gets burnt. So just crushing a little garlic in there. And then I'm just going to let it simmer while I get everything else ready. Added some red lentils that I've already rinsed and checked through to make sure there wasn't anything in there that shouldn't be. And then I'm going to want to thicken it up with just a little bit of flour. Basically, that'll help it create a little bit of a gravy. I chose to add some fire roasted diced tomatoes. Stir that in there in a bag of mixed vegetables that are just frozen. If it was a different time in the garden, I could just use things from the garden. Vegetable stock. You could use chicken stock. I was just trying to keep this more vegetarian. We'll be bringing this dish to an Easter brunch we've been invited to, and our friend that we are meeting there does not prefer meat. Recipes don't always have to be exact. It's nice to be able to cook where you can just play with the base recipe and kind of make it your own. So I let these sweet potatoes cook until they were really soft. They're still very hot, but I didn't have a lot of time this evening to get this completed, so I wanted to be able to have it ready to go. So I'm just scraping all of the sweet potato meat out of the shells, and then we're going to mash it up, and it'll be the top layer that would normally be made out of just mashed potatoes for a shepherd's pie. I've done this once before similarly, and it worked out really well, so I'm hoping it works as well for this recipe. Everything looks like it's simmering up pretty nicely. Gonna have to make sure we always keep up with taste testing for seasoning. Adding a little bit of garlic powder. Some soy sauce. Thought that would add a little bit of a better flavor than just plain salt, but I did add some salt. Got to give it the official taste test several times. I think by this point I decided it was all right. So we'll just go from there. Got this big casserole dish that I plan to use for this. Very carefully pouring it in, hoping I'm not going to spill. I was kind of impressed with myself that I didn't spill, at least not very much. So one of the things about when you make a recipe that doesn't really have a recipe, sometimes you make a little too much, and I thought this was too full. So I got a container out to set some to the side for another use. And spoiler alert, I'll show you at the end what I did with it. This is just a little half and half. I've already put some butter in with these sweet potatoes. I'm just going to make the topping for the shepherd's pie. You can season it up to your liking. I think I just used a little bit of salt. And then what I did was layer it really gently across the top because it's a bit of a gravy consistency, so it would be easy for it to go through. And I want this to be more like a layer on top. Once I get a layer completed over the top and it's nice and smoothed down, then it'll be ready to bake. Since I'll be baking it in the morning, I'm just going to cover it with tin foil. And this is how it looked coming out of the oven. I'm going to wrap it up for our travels. Just use some towels and put it out on the buffet table. It seemed to be well liked. And if you remember, we had all this leftover squash, but I also wanted to make sure to save some of the seeds. There looked like there would be some really good seeds in there. Well, of course, I stuck them into a jar overnight with some water, poured them out onto a paper towel the next day after I'd strained them, and we'll see how they grow. You remember this little bit of extra that we had that I saved? Well, this is what I did with it. I got out my immersion blender, added in a little extra sweet potato, put it on the stove with a little bit of vegetable broth, and added some milk, and I'm basically making a cream of vegetable soup. Make sure it's nice and smooth. Takes several times with the immersion blender. Added in a little butter, some salt and pepper, a little bit of tomato sauce. And this is really just using your leftovers to make something new. I don't have an actual recipe, but it seemed to taste pretty good. So I put it in the crock pot to keep it warm, and we had it with our Easter dinner when the kids came over. I hope you found it encouraging to see that you can do all kinds of things with what you grow in the garden, and you can make it 100% your own.